Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. How did you celebrate? Pretty exciting. Yes, I know. This is a new year, 2025. So, welcome to your new year. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Uche Maple. I am a leadership and professional development consultant. I am the president of Noteworthy Consulting, where we empower leaders to prepare them for tomorrow challenges. Now, today we're talking about day two. Day is part two of a two-part series. Yesterday, I talked about how you can pretty much try to make a decision in with everything that is happening today in such a short time frame that you don't become overburdened. And for those of you who did respond, you were able to get a link to sign up for the workshop that I'll be having at the end of this month. But more about that later. I'm really excited because today our theme for this month, this year, is resilience leadership. We're going to need that more now than ever. And the goal is to be prepared for resilience before you actually need it. Make sense? Okay. So today, what I want to share with you is something that might surprise you about, team motivation, especially during change, especially during when you have to shift the focus. And let me just start with a quick story. So a leader I worked with recently, let's just call him Michael, was frustrated despite his best efforts to keep his team motivated during a major shift in terms of the technical challenges, the engagement was dropping. He was doing everything right, regular updates, recognition, and clear communication. And what this can look like is that when you are leading a technical project, and when for whatever reason the performance of that technical project changes or shifts or something happen, after a while your team can get disengaged because of the change. But here's what's fascinating that I was when I was talking to him was that this problem wasn't about his communication and recognition. It was something entirely different, which is something we don't think about, that was draining his team resilience. So today I'm going to show you what it is and, more importantly, how to fix it. All right, you ready? Okay. So I like to think about this is like the team resilience formula. How can your team maintain its resilience through constant change, where you have to pivot because information is changing at such a high rate? How can you build resilience within your team? So here's what most leaders get wrong about team engagement, team motivation during shifts and changes. They focus on managing the change instead of building resilience. So when we get a change order, we're like, okay, it's time, everyone, we got to make this change. Let's go ahead and do this. And after a while, your team's steam evaporates. So how are you able to maintain that, help them maintain those resiliency during those times? And let me tell you how. So let me show you what I mean. Now, if you've experienced this before, type a yes in comments. Let me know what it is and how, what does that look like for you? So I I call this the resilience gap. Yes, I made this up. I'm making up a lot of things in 2025 in terms of nomenclatures. But let me share one of the elements of our team alignment framework that completely transforms this dynamic, which is the resilient gap. So, first of all, it starts with understanding that the team resilience isn't built during a change, it's built before change happens. That It's not built during a change. It's built before the change happens. So let me show you how this works. So for the team alignment framework, there are three elements. Is clarity anchors, decision ownership, and forward focus. And what we're going to really just focus on is really the how clarity anchors the team. So, with Michael's story that I talked about earlier, his team was struggling not because they didn't understand the change, but because they didn't have clarity anchors in place. So here's what we identified. Now, as a systems engineer for over a decade plus, I'm going to use some language that is familiar to me to make this come across. And when I talk about having clarity anchors, when you don't have it in place, you really do go through a decision logic process. So, first thing is you identify what your non negotiable constraints are. So, what that means is what are requirements that you absolutely have to meet? There is, these are your shall statements that you have to meet. What are they? And then create your clear decision boundaries. What are the boundaries that we have that we're not going to change or shift no matter what? Because you have to have something in place, right? That is constant and consistent. Because if it's not, it's chaotic and it's all over the place. And then how do we establish forward based check ins with the team? Here's an example. So, someone on Michael's team, they faced a critical decision during a major platform migration, right? As an example, they discovered that a core interface was causing unexpected latency issues in the new architecture. So we can imagine, right? When you have a new architecture, when you're building something new, the latency issues, something is always going to go wrong. And latency is really one of them. And what they found out is that the interface is what they were having an issue with. So Michael's team had to decide, are they going to redesign the interface? No, we don't want to do that. Can we add a quick fix? What can we do instead? Is there a separate interface we can use that's already within the architecture, or do we have to revert back to the previous architecture? You never want to revert back to any of those. But before we start going through the technical part, let's just go through the whole process. Now, before having clarity anchors, Michael and his team, they would have called emergency meetings, multiple meetings, would have done a lot of analysis over and over again, would have struggled with competing priorities, and then really delayed a decision due to uncertainty about the impact of it, right? So again, before you have the clarity anchors, Michael and his team would have called multiple emergency meetings, created a lot of analysis, reports, having debriefs over and over again. How many of you can relate to this? It's bringing back so much deja vu as an engineer. Okay. Struggle with competing priorities and then delaying a decision due to uncertainty about the impact. Now, when you do have clarity anchors, so the first thing we do is when we talk about using clarity anchors, the first thing we do is we check our constraints. And what that means is we are checked against our constants. And what that means is, what are the priorities of our stakeholders? What is it that we absolutely have to meet? And one of them is performance and modularity, right? Is the architecture modular, and what is the performance? And then the quality standard. What is the minimum time requirements that has been given to us that we absolutely have to meet? What are those response times between interfaces? And then in general, and then another thing is maintainability. Do we want to make sure that we have maintainable solution over quick fixes? We don't want to keep having band-aids. So again, we are checked against our constants. What are the things that we want to make sure are consistent as we're doing this? The second thing is that then we apply decision filter, and we ask the questions with our constants, with our anchor constants. Does this solution maintain our performance standards? Is this architecture consistent with our principles? And can we effectively maintain this long term? You have to start having critical thinking skills when you are going through this process with your team to build resilience. And it is a skill that has to be constantly worked on. After that, you can create a solution, and it can be in phases. I know when we used to do engineering projects, when we would have to complete and deliver incremental phases, With certain requirements, we incrementally build up that capability, that performance requirements over time because we wanted to show incremental progress. So you can implement immediate interfaces for critical paths. You can design an incremental requirement plan, provide clear performance metrics, and then leverage the team's distributive system expertise. How we leveraging everyone's team. And here's the outcome that came from working with Alex and his team. They had immediate performance improvement. They had a clear path for a long-term solution. They maintained the architectural integrity, and then the team aligned on the approach because they had built those anchors, and then they went through the entire process so that they can come up with the outcome. And when we talk about, well, Uche, well, why does it work? When you provide those clarity anchors, the way I look at anchors is just like a ship, right? When you hold down the anchor, you're in place. And to me, what that means is another way to look at it is when you're in place, you are in a position to get clarity to focus on things that you cannot negotiate on. And when you use this method, it helps you gain technical decision confidence. You have your clear performance boundaries, and then you have your architectural principles to help guide your choices. The second thing is your team is in alignment because now you are sharing the understanding of priorities, and you're not just having meetings where you're meeting all the time. You actually have a plan, and you can share common technical values. The reason why the team alignment is important is so that everyone is on the same page. That makes sense. So, what was the result? Well, within 6 weeks, the team wasn't just accepting change, they were actually driving it now because they had clear direction and path. And their actual engagement in terms of how people were engaged with the decision, with making decisions actually increased by 20%. And because they were in alignment, they actually accelerated their project timeline. Does that make sense? But here's what's really powerful besides all of that technical stuff that I was talking about Michael and his team, that this wasn't just about managing change. His team developed ongoing resilience that served them through multiple transitions. And that's important, is that when you're working on a project that is very dynamic, you have to have your clarity anchors in place. And everyone has to be in alignment with what that is. Now, what I've shared today is just one piece of the complete framework for building resilient teams. In our upcoming workshop that we're having January 30th, we're going to dive much deeper. You're going to learn the complete team alignment framework, just like yesterday when I talked about the 2-minute decision framework. You're going to talk about that. We're going to learn about that. You're going to learn how to build resilient before you need it. I gave you a little bit of that in today's meeting. And then techniques for turning team resistance into innovation. Remember, this is a focused 45-minute sessions designed to give you practical tools that you can implement immediately with your team. So we only have enough spots for 50 people, and the first 10 who register will get a complimentary leadership resilient assessment. All I need you to do is drop team TEAM in comments if you like a registration link. I'm really excited about this, especially going into 2025. The resilience part is for the long haul. And we need to build that into how we do not one thing, but everything. And the way we can do that is really through clarity and be anchored in what we believe, in what we can execute, and in what we can actually communicate effectively. So thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to dive deeper into these frameworks with you in the workshop on January 30th. Remember, resilient teams aren't born, they're built. Hello. And I'll show you exactly how to build them. See you at the workshop. Bye.